Most men are taught a simple rule early in their careers. If you work harder, stay reliable, and prove your value consistently, the system will eventually reward you. This belief feels logical because it mirrors how effort works in physical systems, where input reliably produces output. But organizations are not physical systems. They are political systems optimized for stability, predictability, and risk reduction. In these environments, effort does not accumulate into power the way people expect. Instead, it often accumulates into dependence. Reliability feels safe because it creates a sense of belonging and relevance inside the system. When people depend on you, your role feels secure, and your identity becomes reinforced through usefulness. Over time, this usefulness turns into emotional attachment, where being needed feels like proof of worth rather than a temporary condition. This is where the first distortion appears, because need and respect are not the same currency. A system can need your output while deliberately limiting your influence. Modern organizations reward predictability far more than excellence, because predictability allows planning, forecasting, and control. The more predictable you are, the easier it becomes to allocate tasks, manage risk, and maintain operational continuity. Highly competent individuals often become extremely predictable because they respond quickly, solve problems efficiently, and absorb complexity without complaint. This makes them operationally valuable, but strategically inert. The system learns to lean on them instead of elevating them. At a certain point, competence stops being a stepping stone and becomes a cage. The individual's role stabilizes, their responsibilities grow, and their freedom to move shrinks. They are praised frequently, but their scope never expands in meaningful ways. The organization cannot afford to remove them from execution because too much depends on their performance. Ironically, the very behavior meant to signal readiness for advancement becomes the reason advancement never comes. This is not a moral failure or a lack of ambition. It is a structural outcome of system design. Organizations are not meritocracies optimized for fairness, even when they claim to be. They are systems optimized for continuity, where disruption is minimized and risk is carefully distributed. Power is not given to those who perform best, but to those whose removal would not destabilize daily operations. Promotion is less about reward and more about reassigning exposure to uncertainty. Responsibility is often mistaken for authority because both increase visibility and workload. However, responsibility only increases what you carry, while authority increases what you can decide. Many professionals experience a steady rise in responsibility without any corresponding increase in choice, flexibility, or strategic input. This imbalance creates a condition where effort rises, but leverage remains flat. Over time, this leads to exhaustion rather than influence. In such systems, praise becomes a management tool rather than a genuine indicator of value. Praise stabilizes behavior by encouraging people to continue doing exactly what they are already doing. It costs nothing, creates compliance, and reduces the likelihood of resistance or renegotiation. When praise replaces structural advancement, it acts as a substitute reward that keeps the system running smoothly. Those who mistake praise for progress remain trapped indefinitely. Stoic philosophy identified this mechanism long before modern organizations existed. Epictetus warned that freedom is not taken by force alone, but surrendered through attachment. When a person becomes emotionally attached to approval, recognition, or being needed, they voluntarily narrow their own range of action. The chains are internal long before they become external. In corporate environments, attachment to usefulness is one of the most effective forms of self-imposed limitation. Power requires distance, not intensity. Distance allows observation, pattern recognition, and anticipation, all of which are impossible when someone is fully absorbed in execution. Professionals who are constantly reacting have no time to understand the system they operate within. Their world collapses into tasks, deadlines, and emergencies, leaving no cognitive space for strategy. Over time, they become specialists in survival rather than architects of position. Those who operate with leverage appear less active on the surface, but are far more influential beneath it. They do not rush to solve every problem or fill every silence. They observe how decisions are made, where pressure accumulates, and who absorbs risk when things fail. This observational distance allows them to act selectively rather than constantly. Their actions carry more weight precisely because they are rare. Taoist philosophy describes this approach as Wu Wei, often misunderstood as passivity or laziness. In reality, Wu Wei refers to non-forcing or acting in alignment with existing flows rather than against them. Applied to organizations, Wu Wei means resisting the urge to overperform, overreact, or over-explain. It is the discipline of restraint in environments that reward noise and constant activity. This restraint creates contrast, and contrast creates power. When highly reliable individuals step back even slightly, the system reacts. Processes that were previously masked by their effort begin to fail, and inefficiencies rise to the surface. Pressure moves upward instead of being absorbed quietly at lower levels. This shift reveals where decision-making responsibility truly lies. It also exposes how much of the system's stability depended on invisible labor. This moment is uncomfortable because it feels like negligence or risk. Many professionals fear that reducing effort will damage their reputation or security. However, systems rarely punish restraint as harshly as they punish unpredictability or emotional instability. Calm withdrawal often goes unnoticed at first, which is precisely why it works. It allows individuals to reclaim energy and perspective without triggering immediate resistance. Leverage emerges when effort becomes selective instead of constant. Selectivity introduces scarcity, and scarcity changes how value is perceived. If everything you do is available on demand, none of it carries strategic weight. If your presence is constant, Your absence communicates nothing. Power requires the ability to withhold as much as the ability to act. Optionality is the foundation of real power in any system. Optionality means having multiple viable paths forward and the ability to choose between them without panic. Professionals who tie their identity and survival to a single role or organization surrender this advantage. The moment exit becomes impossible, negotiation ends. Systems sense dependency immediately and adjust behavior accordingly. The paradox is that detachment often leads to greater influence, not less. When individuals no longer chase validation through effort, their actions become cleaner and more intentional. They stop trying to prove worth and start positioning themselves strategically. This shift alters how others interact with them, even if nothing else changes on the surface. Calm independence is interpreted as strength in hierarchical environments. The system itself is not malicious, it is mechanical. It rewards behaviors that maintain stability and punishes those that introduce uncertainty. Once this is understood, resentment loses its grip. The goal is no longer to fight the system emotionally, but to navigate it intelligently. Strategy replaces anger, and patience replaces urgency. Breaking free from the competence trap does not require confrontation or rebellion. It requires redesigning one's relationship with effort, identity, and time. Effort becomes a tool rather than a reflex. Identity detaches from output and attaches to optionality. Time is protected as a strategic asset rather than consumed by constant availability. This approach is not about dominance or manipulation. It is about reducing exposure and increasing control over participation. Those who can disengage calmly are treated differently from those who cannot. Silence becomes meaningful and absence becomes noticeable. Over time, this creates a form of quiet authority that does not rely on visibility. The long game favors those who remain calm, observant, and unattached. Systems elevate individuals who do not belong entirely to them, because such individuals introduce strategic ambiguity. They cannot be fully controlled, predicted, or exploited. This ambiguity is uncomfortable for systems, but essential for leverage. Most men never reach this point because exhaustion arrives first. They burn themselves out trying to be seen, valued, and recognized through effort alone. The tragedy is not that they work hard, but that they work without leverage. When effort is disconnected from optionality, it becomes consumption rather than investment. The alternative is not withdrawal from ambition, but refinement of it. Ambition aimed at position rather than output produces entirely different results. Position shapes outcomes, even when effort remains constant. Once this is understood, behavior shifts naturally, without force. The system will continue to operate as designed. It will extract effort, minimize risk, and preserve itself. The only variable within your control is how you engage with it. Calm observation, selective action, and strategic detachment are not weaknesses. They are adaptations. Over time, they compound quietly. This is the essence of parallax. Not motivation, not rebellion, not therapy. It is the discipline of seeing systems clearly and refusing to be consumed by them. Stay calm, stay strategic.